This is Kate at the Library of Whispers, and today I am reading part 6 from my Hallows house story. This is called Bakewell Tart. It was about 3:10 in the afternoon, and Rachel and I were waiting in the kitchen for the arrival of our next door neighbour. She sat at the table with a stack of documents and papers next to her, and I was on my knees, poking about at the back of one of the kitchen cupboards, trying to retrieve my poshest plates, which I'd annoyingly put at the back of the cupboard on the first day we'd moved in. Rachel was bored and tapped her pen rhythmically against her half-empty mug of tea. "Rachel, will you stop doing that? It's annoying," I said. "He's late," she said, dropping her pen on the table and flipping open her mobile phone to check the time. "Only by about 10 min," I began, as the front doorbell chimed. We both looked at each other. It was clear that Rachel wasn't going to get up and answer the door. "He's your guest," she said, smiling, and took a sip of her tea. I stood up, wiped off the dust from my jeans, and gave Rachel a scowl. "Hello," I said to the gentleman on the front doorstep. "I'm really glad you could make it. Please come in." I showed our next door neighbour through to the kitchen, where Rachel was setting out the newly retrieved posh plates. "This is my daughter Rachel," I said. Rachel smiled her hi and continued to set the table. He stopped and stared at Rachel in surprise. "Are you okay?" I asked him. He turned towards me. Yes, sorry." "Oh, you have Bakewell Tart," he said, suddenly pointing at the centre of the table, where my freshly baked tart sat. "It's my favourite. How did you know?" "Oh," I said, confused. "Actually, you asked if I had any yesterday when we met, and I invited you around." "Did I?" he said. "I'll have to take your word for it. But if I did say it, and I obviously did, otherwise, how would you know? Then thank you. It looks delicious." Rachel looked at me and rolled her eyes, and I glared at her to stop. "I suppose I should introduce myself," he said, looking around at our large kitchen and seating himself at the table. Then sighing, he added, "You know, I haven't been in this kitchen since Miss Scullion was taken into the care home. Must have been 2 and something years ago now. It hasn't changed much. Well, we've only just moved in, as you know, still unpacking, in fact," I began, before Rachel interrupted me. "You knew Beatrice Scullion?" she asked. "Yes, I did, young lady," he answered awkwardly, noticeably avoiding her gaze. "For many, many years. I knew her as B, though. A lovely lady. Lived here all her life, you know." "Oh, wow," said Rachel excitedly. "Then I have so much to ask you. I'm doing research into the house and the old manor at the back and all the people connected to it and—" "Rach," I cut in sharply, "maybe we should have some tea and proper introductions first before all the questions." The gentleman smiled. Yes, tea and tart first, questions later. Oh, and you can call me Bert. The full name is Herbert Fogg, but only my mother called me Herbert." Rachel looked over at me and grinned. "Another Fogg," she mouthed exaggeratedly, and I put my fingers to my lips to direct her to hush. Bert was on his second helping of Bakewell Tart and was telling us all about his vast collection of stamps and old coins. He'd asked me if his tart could be warmed and whether we had any ice cream. We didn't, so he ate both slices without the benefit of a sweet topping and seemed to enjoy took a sip of tea. "My brother told me he bumped into you the other day," he began. "Said you were wandering around the graveyard." "Oh yes, we were," I answered. "Your brother is Stanley Fogg." "Younger brother, yes," said Bert. "Lives at Catlow Cottages. I pop in now and then, especially since Doris died." "Doris? That was his wife's name?" I asked. "He was putting flowers on her grave." At that, Rachel cut in. "We weren't actually wandering around. We were looking for something in particular, a grave." "I know," said Bert, still avoiding Rachel's gaze. "Stan said you were looking at the Pike grave." "Yes," I said. "We discovered that the Pike family, or should I say the two brothers, built this house, and your house of course, before it was split." Bert nodded. "Aye," he said, "that they did. It was called Hallows House back then. It was Bee's uncle, Sylvester Scullion, who split it up. Did you know that?" "Yes, we did," I answered. "It was in the 1920s, wasn't it? At least, that was what your brother Stanley said. He also said it was sold after the brothers died. But we found out that—" "No," Bert cut in. "It wasn't sold. Stan always gets things wrong. Bee's uncle Sylvester was left it. He was the house manager at the old hall. He was left it by Joseph Pike, who died last, and Bee was born here. Did I tell you that?" No," I answered. "That is interesting. We didn't know that either, did we, Rachel?" I looked towards Rachel, who had opened up her notebook and was balancing it on her knee. She nodded her head in agreement and turned towards Bert. "So, Mr. Fogg, when was Beatrice B. born? Did her parents live here too? Was she born in our side of the house or your side of the house? Oh, and do you have a wine cellar and a fountain in your back garden?" she asked. "So many questions," said Bert, raising his arms and flapping them around. "And so many papers," he continued, looking over at Rachel's pile of documents. "Yes," she said, tapping them with her pen. "We found some of them in the old clock in the hallway last night. They used to belong to Bee." "But we have other documents too," I said. "Something very strange happened the other evening. A man, a stranger, knocked on our door and handed us an envelope with old newspaper clippings inside and other things. He said they were from the Messrs. Pike," added Rachel, passing the large envelope to Bert. He looked startled at Rachel's suggestion and then took the package, putting it down on the table without looking at it. "A stranger, you say?" he said. "What did he look like?" "Oh," I answered, a little surprised by the question. "Well, he was tall, thin. It was difficult to see his features in the dark, but I think he wore round-rimmed glasses, and he had a moustache. He also had a faint accent. I couldn't work it out at the time, but now I think about it, he could have been Irish," I added. "And he was wearing a top hat," Rachel cut in, "and weird old-fashioned clothes. We thought maybe he was dressed up for trick-or-treat. He's the whole reason why we've been trying to find out about the Pike family and—" Before she could finish her sentence, Bert said, "Then it was All Hallows Eve." Yes," Rachel answered. "Does that matter?" Bert didn't answer. Instead, he looked down, sighing, and shook his head. "Mr. Fogg," I asked, "is there something we should know? You look concerned." He still didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Rachel's stack of papers and, addressing her for the first time, said, "Are there any old photos in that pile of Bee's documents, young lady?" Yes," she said, handing them to him. "There are pictures of some old buildings and people, but I don't know who they are." Bert slowly searched through the photographs. said, pointing to a small family group. This is Bee's mother and father, Alice and Charlie. That's Bee herself as a child, sitting on her mother's knee. And at the side of Bee's father is his brother, Sylvester, Bee's uncle. We both peered at the formal family photograph, taken out in the open air, in front of a garden wall adorned with climbing roses. To the left of the group, and within the stone wall, was a wooden gate. Bee's father held a basket full of apples, and Bee herself held a small apple in her hand. "Is that our garden gate?" exclaimed Rachel, looking at me. I shrugged my shoulders and shook my head. I don't know. I suppose it could be," I said. "It is," said Bert bluntly. "The photograph was taken in your back garden." Rachel looked at me, open-mouthed. "Charlie and Alice lived in your house, number 9, and Sylvester lived in my house, number 7, said Bert. "The Scullions were Irish. Charlie was the younger brother, and he came over from Dublin with his pregnant wife and moved in. That was the arrangement for years and years, until Sylvester died in 1941. The year I was born, I might add, and the year my parents moved in. They'd been bombed out, you know, during the Blitz." Rachel took up her pen and began to write furiously in her notebook. "Anyway," he said, pointing to the tall, thin, bespectacled figure of Sylvester Scullion in the photograph, "do you notice any resemblance to your stranger?" "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. Rachel looked at me startled, and then at Bert. "No, it can't be the same person. That's impossible," she said. "Bert, you can't be suggesting that the stranger who came to our door the other night was Bee's uncle, Sylvester Scullion," I said, picking up the photo and looking more closely at the figure. "He must have been dead for 70 years. 77, to be precise," answered Bert bluntly. "Then that's ridiculous," I said. "The man I shook hands with the other night was very much alive." Bert remained silent, then sighing, picked up the last crumbs of Bakewell Tart from his plate with his fingertips and placed them in his mouth. Rachel frowned at me and took the photograph and intently examined the figure of Sylvester Scullion. The wind suddenly picked up outside, and I realised how dark it had become. Bert broke his silence and whispered, "Strange things happen sometimes. Strange things." Rachel put the photograph down on the table. "What things?" she said. "Do you believe in ghosts?" he said, looking directly at her for the first time. "No," she said stubbornly. "Then I've probably said too much," said Bert, rising from his chair. "Thank you for the Bakewell Tart, Mrs. It was very kind of you to make it, and very nice to meet you both, but I should probably be going." "You can't leave it there," said Rachel suddenly, also rising from her chair. "Mr. Fogg, Bert, you need to tell us more. Are you saying that Sylvester Scullion or his ghost came to our door on Hallows Eve?" "Rachel, don't be ridiculous," I said. "But strange things have been happening to us, haven't they, Mum?" said Rachel. "Bert, why did you ask us if it was the night of All Hallows Eve when the stranger came to our door? What's the connection? Is it because that's the night that Elizabeth Pike was murdered?" Bert suddenly stopped at the kitchen door. Then he turned slowly to face us. "Yes," he said gravely. "Please stay," pleaded Rachel. "I've been having awful nightmares. I need to know more." At that, Bert sat